At this point, I'd like to bring in the HELM guys, introduce you all to HELM, Olivier and Jacob, and talk about their market, their themselves and their specific target market.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, it's a good opportunity to share why, for us, we believe that the Gensouce project is a good opportunity for HELM. Rocky, maybe if you can put the map of what HELM is doing in the US. As Olivier mentioned, we have been heavily investing into the US for the past many years, and we have a very good, I would say, netback selection on distribution. As you can see there, I would say that we are all along the river system up to Clayton, which is the northwest point where we can reach product by barge. The point of entry that Olivier was mentioning in New Orleans is where I would say a good chunk of all the imports are coming into the US. The fact that the plants of the TSXV project is it's coming from the north part, which means that for us as an opportunity to develop into an area where we are not yet present. Therefore, however, I would say that the product that we have is something that we will be able to combine to the same customer base that we have been having. And Jacob is going to explain that a little bit. Today, as you said, we started in the 90s and we're moving from 100,000 tons about 20 years ago now, and we're going to move about 3 million tons in fertilizer into the US. We are on the top 5 tier of the I would say distributor. We are penetrating in all different areas with all different of products. Potash is already existing. We're currently moving about 400,000 tons of product like potash today in our system. The project itself is not going to take over the existing distribution of potash that we're having today, but is going to, as I said, moving into the west area. I think that there's a question, are we going to add some, I know I'm jumping a little bit, but that's important with the time we have. If we are going to put anti-chemical product into the product to distribution, at the end, what we are aiming at as a HELM, after taking over from Olivier, is that I'm looking to have projects where the consumption is. So I'm trying to eradicate a little bit all the sea transport that we have been having. So that fits, first of all, the product is known. The production also is on a good capacity, 250 to 300,000 tons of product is not something that is tremendous to move. It's doable. We have the customer base already existing and ready to take over. And what I would like also to get, which is, I know it seems very into favor these days, but go into the organic. And I think Mike and Rob can explain a little bit where we would like to go to. The markets in the Pacific Northwest California, it's very much where the bio industry is. And to have, I would say, an organic product will be kind of an element for us to re-promote the fertilizer industry a little bit greener than what it is today. So that's, I would say, it's a full loop. The loop is definitely that if we do right and you find the right partnership in a known, I would say, environment with already a good base customer for something that is needed for, I would say, feeding the world, as we trying to tell us ourselves into the fertilizer industry. If you put all the dots together, that's, I would say, an extremely very attractive project. That's, I would say, that's for him on all level. I mean, that's the kind of project that I'm looking, and there's many little ones like that people, I would say, are not looking. The big ones are not looking. I'm coming from Yara, a Norwegian group where we are moving about 33 million tons in the past. It's a market cap of 10 billion. I'm moving to HELM, which is, I would say, more agile and keener to look at new things, and I would say the white page that will attract these small projects. And I joined about a year and a half ago, at the same time as when we met with Mike. And this project, I would say, fits exactly what I was and I'm looking at. So maybe Jacob can explain a little bit better what why the customer base is so important, and why we will not see as a problem of placing this 250,000 tons of product.
And Jacob, could you please provide your background and your role at HELM?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob Shreve. I'm the Vice President of HFC, which is the HELM operations in the U.S., and I oversee our sales activities within the boundaries of the U.S. That volume today is about 2.5 to 3 million tons. I've been with HELM for 8 years, I guess 9 years now. Prior to that, I actually came from a farm in Illinois, and I've touched agriculture in every aspect of the way. I spent some time in retail. I worked for a chemical manufacturer at Monsanto. I worked for a small regional distributor, and now with HELM. So very familiar with the marketplace, very familiar with how ag ticks, and looking forward, we look at a lot of projects as HELM, and this is one that probably I can say I can get really excited about really quickly. HELM started in the U.S. in 1990 as strictly as I guess a little earlier than that, but started distribution in 1990 with the purchase of Memphis, Tennessee. At that time, we were moving about 100,000 tons through distribution. So over time, we have moved from moving that first 100,000 tons to moving close to where we are today, nearly 3 million. At that time, people looked at HELM as kind of a trading company. We weren't really backed by producers. We didn't have a lot of support at that level. So we did a lot of arbitrage moves. We brought in tons from wherever we could bring tons. We moved them around to make them as much money as we could. Over time, we grew our distribution footprint and found that we needed producer support, kind of like this Gensouce project, the Tukaski project. In 2010, we started bringing about 1 million tons of UAN into the U.S. That goes back to the plant that Oliver Mell touched on down at Trinidad and Tobago. We produce 1.5 million tons there. 1 million tons of that comes to our group here in the U.S. So we had to build a distribution model to get that distributed across the U.S. And we do a majority of that on the east side of the state, away from, or the east side of the country, away from the big producers of UAN, nitrogen fertilizer, in the West. And so that model is really what we're looking to use to come into the Tukaski project, because even though our tons are moving on the eastern half of the U.S., the customer base is relatively the same. So if you look at the U.S. ag business, it's about 5 to 6 huge players, and then a lot of smaller cooperatives and independents and scattered across the rest of the country. So the nationals would move a big portion of the tons of our UAN. Those same customers are the ones that we'll try and touch, that we will touch out in the western part of the U.S. For the same reasons that we move our UAN in the eastern side of the country and have success doing that, will be the reasons we have success with the potash on the western part of the country. It's going to be a logistics game. It's very insulated from imports. Yes, we will not be advantaged to the Canadian producers as far as logistics coming into the U.S., but we'll have a huge advantage over all other importers coming in from offshore. As you look at the size and the scope of the project, Olivier has touched on that a lot. What's great about the customers up there is they're looking for other options, much like what we've done in the U.S. On UAN. We're not offering a unique project, we're offering another option. And buyers in general, just like when you go fill up your car at a gas station, don't necessarily want to be told who you have to buy from or what you have to pay. They want to have an option at the same price point, or to be in a competitive situation. So what the Tukaski project offers is those buyers, different opportunities to place the same product they're already using. We don't have to be a price setter. We don't have to be a price driver. But because they want another option, because they want to spread their pricing risk, and because they like to hedge their purchases across multiple suppliers, we feel very strongly that we can place these tons, with ease. As you look at the U.S. distribution business that Oliver commented on earlier, coming from the South, one of the great at New Orleans, one of the great things that this Tugasky project does is it really shortens the value chain. If you had a massive amount of tons coming in, you have to go to what we would consider distribution companies. We are a distribution company, but as a partner with Gensouce, we can take those tons and go straight to retail. If you had a much bigger project, you would have to find multiple companies like HELM to go in, handle the tons, and it expands your your value chain. By having a small project and by taking it to a very select group of customers, not only will we be able to cut out that expense in the middle of adding another player, but you also can pick and choose your higher returns to the mine because you're not under pressure to move a massive amount of tons. So this is not unique to HELM. This is a model that we already have in place. We have excellent relationships over time with customers that we're going to be targeting. We're not reinventing the wheel here. This is something that we do every day in the U.S. and that we've done with great success since 1990. To comment a little bit on HELM overall, we do fertilizer is a big piece of what we do in the U.S., but we're also the world's largest marketeer of methanol. That's not handled in our office, but globally, we have a big presence there. We share an office here in the U.S. with HELM Agro, which is an ag chemical company. So we distribute chemicals for the ag business across the U.S. We're also involved in pharmaceuticals and other industrial chemicals as well. So the fertilizer piece of HELM is actually a fairly small piece of HELM overall, but it's a very successful piece that we're proud of here in the U.S.
That's great, Jacob. Okay, we got a question here. It may be for you, Jacob, or or one of the other panelists. And the question is, how much does Russia and Belarus spend per metric ton to ship their potash to New Orleans or to depots up the Mississippi?
Olivier, maybe I speak to the piece from the U.S. up, or do you want to go the other way? What do you prefer?
Yeah, Oliver, I think you have, if you unmute yourself, but I mean, you have already the cost from, I would say, from Russia, the railway from the plant to the seaport down to NOLA up. NOLA to where we're going to go is roughly about $35 to $40.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you put it into a warehouse where you're in and out, which is between $8 to $12. So that's your US part, and then you have, Oliver, the freight.
Well then, if you come from, let's say, your lowest OPEX or lowest OPEX, average OPEXs are coming from Russia or Belarus. They're disadvantaged because of where they're located geographically. Again, just imagine you're loading in Finland, just giving an illustration, and just loading, let's say, in rail cars, and to load it onto a vessel in Lisbon. In other words, you've got to cross the whole of between North and South of Europe. This is the same distance between the Ural Mountains and Kaliningrad in the Baltic. And that will cost, let's say, $30, $40, $45, $50, $55, $60 a ton. Then you've got to go discharge into a warehouse, load it out of the warehouse onto a vessel. It costs you another $12 to $15 a ton. Then it'll cost you, let's say, $35 a ton to get the vessel all the way from Kaliningrad to a discharging port, whether it's been New Orleans or whether it's Paranagua in Brazil. And then it's going to cost you $5, $6 to put it on a barge, and the rest Olivier told you. So, I mean, you've got enormous disadvantage coming from, even though you've got, let's say, an advantage on OPEX, you have a logistic disadvantage coming from Russia or Belarus.
And then if you look at, to add to that, Oliver, if you look at the map and you see Inola, Oklahoma kind of highlighted, the $45 that Olivier alluded to was to get it up to Inola and onto a truck there. There's still another logistics piece, and I'm going to estimate it at about $65 to $70 to get it from Inola into the markets we're going to target in the PNW and the California coast. So it's a massive expense to move it from Russia, all the way to the markets that we're going to target these tons with.
And this is why I said that part of the U.S. or a lot of the U.S. is landlocked. You know, you've got the Appalachian Mountains. You just got one big entrance into the U.S., which is New Orleans, and then to the west you've got the Rockies. In other words, this is a natural market for the Canadians.
So we have another question, and this probably is for Mike and maybe Olivier. But the question is, can Gensouce provide an overview on how the project is sustainable? As this is being used for fertilizers, I'm assuming there's no organic advantage here.
I can talk about the sustainable part of the project, and maybe Olivier, you can talk about the organic side. So the project itself uses selective solution mining methods that results in its very light environmental footprint. So that means we have no salt tailings. If anybody's ever seen a potash mine, you can go on Google Earth and find them. They're easy to spot because each of them have beside them a mountain of excess salt. The ore that we mine is 2/3 salt and 1/3 potash. So if you bring that ore to surface, you sell the 1/3 of it. The 2/3 that's left over becomes tailings. So there's particularly in Saskatchewan, there's no economic use for all this salt. If you were in the New England states, you could probably have a good road salt business with it, but not in the western prairies. So it becomes a waste. So it's piled up on mountains that in some cases cover almost 2 square miles of area and are currently 60+ meters high and growing. As I said, you can find them on Google Earth. They're easy to see. Associated with the tailings pile is brine ponds, are brine ponds. You have to encircle these tailing piles with brine ponds because they go out there wet. So it's the brine ponds that represent the environmental impact or the major environmental impact. Because even though most ponds are lined with either clay or plastic, they leak. Every one of them leaks, and every potash mine is required to drill monitoring wells and monitor the amount of brine that has migrated into various water sources around the mines. So it's an ongoing problem for the life of the mine, and the hundreds of millions of tons of NaCl salt sitting there as tailings becomes a real problem with respect to decommissioning. Oliver mentioned earlier the fact that it's so much easier to keep a mine open and running even a little bit than it is to decommission it. That's because there's no real way to decommission these mines. With all that salt tailings left on surface, it's an intractable problem that really has no solution right now. So they sit. So Tegasky has no salt tailings, no brine ponds. Our selective solution mining methods use about 1/4 of the water, 1/4 of the fresh water per ton of product compared to other solution mining methods. So it's very efficient on fresh water use, and anyone from Saskatchewan knows that fresh water is a real issue in the southern part of our province. It's a hot, dry place, except for the few chilly days around Christmas time, right? So that's the project itself. It sets a brand new bar for environmental standards for a potash operation.
Mike, perhaps you can also add the community impact that a project of this size with its environmental footprint has as it relates to the community and employment.
Yeah, very good point. To construct this requires in the range of 150 to 200 construction personnel over the course of 2 years. That compares to a typical mine that requires 2,500 over the course of 5 years. To operate this mine, Tegasky, will take 42 staff, full-time staff at the operation, compared to 400 to 500 at a typical potash operation in Saskatchewan. What that means is that our small operation fits in very nicely with a local community. Saskatchewan's dotted with very small towns and villages. It's predominantly rural, and a new mine coming in that employs 500 people and it takes 2,500 people to construct it does not fit into a community. It obliterates a community. It changes the community, whereas we will fit in very nicely. So as a result, the local rural municipalities in our project area are very excited and tremendously supportive to have us there. They're one of our strongest cheerleaders.
From our point of view on the marketing side, of course, the organic is a lot of value. Of course, we are not going to be able to put all the tonnage into organic, I would say, premium market. We reckon that the California Pacific Northwest area, there's some demand for some potash organic. And of course, I'm going to use that in order to try to penetrate that market. Volume-wise, I'm not too sure yet how it is, but that's for sure that it's a strong interest. I know that we call it a little bit the green potash or the clean potash, where we had the exchange between the team in order to find out what kind of angle we will market the product to. But that will be only, I would say, in the California and North and South Pacific Northwest area. The rest will have to be fitting against the existing product, right?
Well, Olivier, what's involved with making it green, and do you expect to get a premium for that potash?
Yeah, we do. The problem is that we know that some of the, I would say, there's other products that we will have to compete with. But there's definitely in the bio area there. There's definitely a premium, but I'm not able to tell you how much will it be. But for sure, that's something we are studying.
Mm-hmm. So, and the product itself is fundamentally an organic product. It's a mineral that we're simply pulling out of the ground. What makes the current potash production non-organic is the things that are added to it. Anti-caking amines, dedusting oils, are predominantly the anti-caking amines in the industry right now are animal fat based. The dedusting oil are mostly petroleum based oils. So the key to making the final product organic is to simply find organic solutions to those two items. So we'll be looking at things like organic canola oil for dedusting purposes and anti-caking purposes that don't cross the line and allow it to stay organic.
Olivier, did you want to discuss pricing? Give a couple of slides.
Yeah, it's not really to discuss pricing, but why this project also, why we selected potash and not went into nitrogen or phosphate. I mean, the slide below is just to demonstrate that the price volatility on potash is definitely something outside the rest of the different products that we are normally importing into the US. So I would say you have the dark blue, which is more or less it's the urea. The red one is the phosphate, and the top layer is the potash. So first of all, the potash price is bringing a little bit more premium than the rest. And as you can tell, it's less volatile. So that's numbers since 2018 or whatever, but you can tell that it's very, very stable. The price dip that you see there, it's just what's happening today with, I would say, the COVID, because the main season in China should start, and that has been delayed. So then it's not even a realized price yet, but that's something that normally should come back up again once the big contracts are done into India and China. The one below, again, that one is just to show also the relative volatility. You know, the potash is moving between, I would say, plus or minus 5% compared to plus or minus 25% for the rest of the other fertilizers. So that's also an interest.
Olivier, just to kind of add to that, I mean, I think one thing that's important to realize here is potash in the U.S. is traded or sold more of on a kind of a dedicated offtake basis, which is how we would also market these tons. So we would solicit customers to take ratably, and then that price sets over time. When we market these other products, a lot of those products trade strictly on a spot market, so on an opportunistic market, and so the volatility is much stronger in that. But because these tons would ship regularly to customers that would take them in every quarter as we go, then that price remains a little more stable over time.
Yeah.
Jacob, did you want to explain why this price is stable? What is the reason behind the stability of the price?
Well, I think a piece of it is why what I just commented to is that, it's more done on a ratable offtake. But the second thing is there are not very many potash producers. So where a lot of people look at that and say, well, this is kind of an oligopoly, how can a little player survive? Actually, I'm not going to say that it's a controlled market, but because there's so few people in it, it takes the volatility out of it. And so by being a smaller player, again, we can just kind of ride along and let the larger mines kind of set the price, and we're there not as a disruptor, kind of as a follower in the market, supplying value to the chain. So it's really a function of ratable offtake and few players in the potash market.
Yeah, if I may add also on that one, it's the size. I know I've seen the question, can we be cost effective, whatever, but I mean, at the end, we will be able to place the tons irrespective of the market situation. Because of this oligopoly situation on the producer side, there will be the big ones that will probably curtail production in order to maintain and keep the price high in the US, and try to export to maintain also this price into that area. So So and then as we give the second choice for the different customers there, that's also, as you mentioned also earlier, is that it gives them a choice or a validity of the price, right? A check on the price if what they receive is according to what the market is. So that gives them a kind of I would say, a transparency. So that's I would say an added value too.
We have some other questions. So one of the questions is, can you speak to the potash mining process and technology used? Mike, you may have covered some of that already, but is there anything else you think you could add on that point?
Yeah, we don't want to dive into too many details, but it's selective solution mining. It's a form of solution mining that uses a concentrated NaCl brine as the mining fluid rather than clear water. And by using that brine, it only or selectively dissolves KCl, which is potash, instead of both KCl and NaCl in the ore zone. So that's the key aspect to it. These methods have been used in Saskatchewan since 1960, since Belle Plaine started up. Their solution mining method uses a two-phase approach. The second phase is selective solution mining. It's also been used in long horizontal caverns in Utah since the early 2000s. We're using the long drilled horizontal cavern method, and that fits very well in Saskatchewan with our tremendously flat lying, consistent ore body that we have here. The processing is typical cooling crystallization. Every potash mine on the planet has a crystallizer. We have crystallizers that simply cool the brine down. And as it cools down, crystals form of KCl, and those crystals are dried and compacted and screened into the final product. It's a very linear, straightforward method. Once the KCl has been extracted from the brine, that same brine is reheated and put back down the hole again. So it's a 100% recycle, round and round in circles system.
And a related question, I think you may have covered some of this, but the question is specifically is, because the project is smaller scale, subscale as compared to other projects, how is it able to be a low-cost producer?
That's the really interesting part, is that it's able to be a low-cost producer because of the the mining and processing methods that we're using. When you don't have to bring up 3 times the tonnage that you can actually sell from underground, when you don't have to store and maintain in the long term all those excess tailings and manage all the environmental impacts of that, and staff it as a whole area of your operation that you have to run and maintain, it reduces both your capital cost and your operating cost. Mm-hmm. So simplicity is the key, when you focus on reducing your unit costs through efficiency rather than economies of scale, then you're starting in a better place. And that's where we're starting. We can see economies of scale too. You know, if we scale this thing up, then our operating cost drops, just like you would expect it to. But starting from a position of sound efficiency gives us our efficiency in terms of energy usage and mining and processing methods. Then you're starting from a place that is competitive even at this small scale.
Yeah, just to add to that, Mike, to put it into context, conventional mining, whether it's conventional solution or conventional underground with complete with shafts, you're taking up in Saskatchewan, it's basically a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every ton of saleable product, potash, MOP, that you produce, you put on surface 2 tons of salt. That's NaCl. So let's say last year we produced 13 million and sold 13 million tons of potash. We produced and put on surface 26 million tons of salt. That's 1 year. These mines have been operating since the 60s. So you have a big problem in salt and salt handling. There's an environmental issue there, but there's certainly a large infrastructure investment and operating cost associated with maintaining and managing that salt pile. What we've done is removed the need to manage and handle and invest in a nuisance byproduct that has no value to it.
Yep.
And can't be monetized.
Okay, a related question: if your method is superior, is every new operation using the same method? If not, why would a competitor not use it?
Yeah, we get that question all the time, and I think when you look around at who's doing what as a new project, you'll see that everyone is using this. Everyone is heading in this direction. There's no question. We have some patented technology in the process plant around energy usage. That's where I come from when I talk about efficiency. That gives us a tremendously low operating cost because of our energy usage system. But the selective solution mining methods and know-how are open source. Anybody can do this. We have a lot of knowledge and trade secrets, if you want to call it that, in terms of what we know about this, and we'll keep those to ourselves. But the method is open. Anybody can drill a hole in the ground and do this. And if you look around, you'll find that that's exactly what's happening. The existing guys don't do this because they don't do this. They've been doing conventional underground mining for 60 years. So they're not going to throw those away and start doing this. But as I said, if you look around, you see that any new proposed mine, short of BHP, that's a whole separate discussion that we won't get into. But short of BHP, every new development is focusing on solution mining and specifically on selective solution mining. It was identified in the 60s that selective solution mining was the right way to mine potash. What was lacked at that point was the drilling technology to allow us to actually access the ore zone efficiently and effectively enough to make it work. Now, through the oil and gas industry over the last 20, 25 years, horizontal drilling has been perfected. and that is the basis of how we attack the underground portion of this.
Yep.
Just consider it. Let's say that the Tugaskia project is the Tesla project, competing against the combustion motor from Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, and Cadillac. There'll come a time when Volkswagen, Cadillac, and Mercedes-Benz will have to also produce the electric motor and compete with Tesla and shut down their combustion engines.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yep.
The challenge is, if for the incumbents, is it's difficult and very expensive to shut down their internal combustion engine. They have a real big, issue in how they deal with and decommission their existing operations, and that will become a bigger and bigger issue. I'm not saying it's necessarily recognized as big an issue that it really is right now. But I do believe that, or we do believe that, in the fullness of time, as we move forwards and as our Teslas start to become more prevalent, there's going to be increased pressure to manage and deal more effectively with these legacy problems that have been created over time.
Yeah. So, of course, we have a question that relates to what you guys just said, which is how much technology risk is there around the patented or unique elements of your approach?
That's something that of course the banks, the KfW IPEX Bank is our lead financial arranger for the debt portion of the project finance. They're digging deeply into that now with the independent engineering reviews. Those results aren't yet in, but if you ask us, there's absolutely no concern there, and we're very confident the independent engineering reviews from the banks will say the same thing. The methodologies we're using are well proven, well understood. The patented technology we have in the process plant around the energy system is also used in other industries all the time. It's not a difficult not a difficult thing to integrate into what we're doing. It's simply all around steam, power, and cooling, and integrating those together in an efficient way. So the technology risk, and that's actually a category that finance folks like to speak about. Technology risk, in our view, technology risk here is, for all intents and purposes, zero. And the independent engineering reports will corroborate that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. We have a few questions on offtake and financing. Maybe Olivier and Mike, do you want to talk about the project more specifically? Do you have some more points about the project specifically, and we'll get to those last, or do you want to take them now?
Yeah, now and then we can close at the end, right, Mike?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, fine. First of all, an update on the financing of the project.
So the financing, it's hard to put a ruler up to gauge the percent complete of the financing. Mm-hmm. We have 6 major areas of due diligence going on, driven by KfW IPEX. That is the financial model, independent engineering review, independent market review, independent environmental and social review. That was interesting. That that's its own subject area now. It's not mixed in with anything else. It stands on its own. Independent review of insurance requirements and legal and corporate due diligence. All of those things are underway. We've received draft reports on one of those. Should receive draft reports for the next 2 or 2 more in the next week or 2. So they're all marching along. So where are we at? 50%? I don't know. It's hard to put a ruler up to this thing. But the key pieces are the independent engineering review and the market review. Those are the key pieces from the financing perspective. and that will drive the negotiation of the actual definitive loan agreements, which we expect to start in the next month or so.
But you have some targets for this summer, right, Mike?
That's right. You may have read or understood that the debt is being assisted by an ECA, the Export Credit Agency. In Germany, it's called Euler Hermes, is the name of the company that does this work. They provide export insurance, similar to Canada's EDC company. So we're targeting a meeting, an approval meeting of Euler Hermes in early July, and subsequently bank commitment letters for the bank debt in late July. So that's the overall timing. The bank commitment letters, of course, are the key piece to allow the remaining equity to come in. The equity certainly is watching very closely and following the due diligence process that's driven by the banks, and will make their final decisions based on the commitment of the debt from the banks. Rob, do you want to add anything more to that, Rob?
I think I covered it. I mean, the process, the due diligence process, has been long and very, very rigorous. It's moving towards the end here, and what's very encouraging is we've not seen any critical flaws. No one's seen any critical flaws. We've proceeded in lockstep. We've delivered are delivering what is required. We're having a great response and great relationship with KfW. And we definitely look forward to having our meeting with Euler Hermes as it comes up at the beginning of July. They are a key part of the overall funding mechanism, and I think you covered pretty much most of it, Mike.
I could jump in, Joe, just quickly on the COVID-19 issue. Yep. We put out a news release a couple of weeks ago on that, and of course we're all, as you can see in the backgrounds, everybody here is working at home. So we probably did see some delay as our banking partners transition from office to home, but everybody has made that transition now. We've had some discussions with the banks at a senior level with respect to ongoing commitment, and the answer we get is that COVID-19 changes nothing about the Tegasky project. They're interested in the Tegasky project for some very specific reasons. The small scale environmental footprint, the fact that Gensouce has teamed with HELM and is providing a complete mine to market solution, eliminates a lot of risk from the perspective of the banks, and they like it for these reasons, and those reasons haven't changed. So the bank is very much still committed on moving this thing forward on the time frame that we had originally envisaged. So there's no backing off from anyone on the finance side at this point due to COVID-19. Even if we all have to transition from home, the transition is done and we're all working.
I think just to add, I don't want to put any words into KfW's mouth or anything like that, but when you see the slide that's in front of you right now, price volatility, that's a big, that's something that's very important when it comes to a project like this, and it takes the risk and price risk and market anxiety from a banking perspective down significantly.
Could any of you comment on the level of diligence that has been done by HELM on this project in Gensouce?
Let's put it that way. We have a team working on that aspect. The main comment that we have had internally was that we are going to trust, of course, the due diligence that is going to be made for KfW, and we will follow that one. So we will not make as HELM another set of studies and everything. So So that will speed up the process also, and we've been involved also in the selection of those parties. And also, as I said, from our side, we're waiting also for the end of July or mid-July, right? When the due diligence will be completed. So, but we will not have another set.
But you're from HELM's perspective, this is being pretty rigorously reviewed from the strategic projects division within HELM.
Sorry, come again?
Oh, I was just saying that the project is being reviewed pretty diligently from the special projects division.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, we have a weekly call, and then we have a bi-monthly. So every 2 weeks we have an update to the board. The project is been presented and approved in order for us to continue on that one. I think maybe it's probably the right time to say so, but from a HELM point of view, since we've been discussing on that project and that has been presented to the board, the decision has been that HELM is going to invest 25% into the project, which is, I would say, something a little bit different than what HELM used to be doing. Technically, normally, HELM is purely looking at an offtake agreement with the minimum equity possible, and on that particular case, the SPNL or special project and assets team there also recommended that maybe it was a good time to increase our share, and that's why we have agreed to stick for 25 plus 1 share, the famous 1 share story. But and then we will have the full offtake on that project.
Yeah, but you're looking, if you don't mind me just interjecting, Olivier, HELM is also looking long term. We're talking, there was a question here, not only of this module, but in the future, once this module is up and running and the product has been placed, HELM and the others other shareholders here are looking at, of course, an extension to the first module, where the economics obviously are advantageous.
Yeah, there's no question. Once the first one's in place, it's a very straightforward matter to expand it with a second module. Other interesting aspects that Olivier really is driving here is to look at organic, to not just create more MOP, but to create value add products. So look at the organic market for MOP, and actually manufacture SOP, sulfate of potash, potassium sulfate, as a side-by-side with MOP. That can be done very cost effectively when you have an at-cost source of MOP to start with. So there's tremendous opportunity for straight expansion as well as broadening of the product line to more valuable products.
Exactly, and that's what we're looking at. I mean, as I said, we have also other source of product that we're looking at more south of the Americas for same market for the California. So if you have if you have the MOP SOP, you can organic wise, you can bring also some other products that are also organic, and you have a perfect combination for a customer. And that fits exactly what the project we're working on right now. So it's a Lego bricks. It works pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. The question here I might have missed earlier. Has the canola oil anti-caking method been successfully applied before?
People have played with it. I don't know. There's never been a real drive to create that organic product from the Saskatchewan mines, at least. It's been played with, but not used on a sustained basis, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no comment.
For a conventional incumbent to dedicate a stream to organics would be, I guess, for the size of the organic market, in the investment that the incumbents would have to make, and the quality control resulting from all that, it's probably not, something that they might be considering it, but it's probably not a driver for them right now. I think, it's not going to add a whole lot to their bottom line. They're focused in on minimizing costs, maximizing, being disciplined in production, which means, controlling the supply to match the demand reasonably, while managing the price, the ultimate price of potash, and being a low cost operator within that context.
Yeah, I think that I've seen a question about the offtake, or not the offtake, but the year of contracts.
The term, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, roughly. I was in my previous life not so long ago. I was running the plant of the Yara fertilizer urea plant in the same area or close to Regina. What we have seen is that it's easier for us when you have, I would say, partnership also not only with your producer but also with your customer. So the idea we have there is to try to reach, I would say, 75 to 80% of the total volume into a sales contract. And the sales contract will be, we will try, at least in order to help us out also for the ramp up, to have it 3 years, where you have, I would say, a volume that the customer has to reach year after year in order to have up to the, I would say, the full capacity. So that's the aim, and I think that's what maybe Jacob, you can also probably explain. That's more or less a success that has been done also on various.
But just to be clear, Olivier, you're talking about between HELM and your customer.
HELM and customer.
Between HELM and Gensouce is a 10-year take-or-pay, 100% of production gear contract, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And then I could probably say that we are going to probably finish the offtake agreement by the end, I would say, by probably next week. Finally.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Great. Jacob,
more, I was mentioning more the sales side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, this mimics kind of what we do on our UAN production in the eastern half of the U.S. We target and maintain about 80% of the tons under some type of an arrangement that go to customers quarterly. So we would again look to align along that same strategy, and so those aren't forward priced way ahead of time or anything like that. They are priced at time, at market values. We just know where those tons are going kind of as we move through it. And so we don't want to get out there too long term, because we want to be able to change the arrangement up a little bit if it's not working for one party or the other. But we also want to be sure that we move the tons away from the plant and supply the highest netbacks or the highest return to the project that we can. So to Olivier's point, we want to go out there and do the longer term contracts. We also want to leave ourselves some flexibility to shift those tons around as we see where the highest returns end up being.
Yeah. This is the beauty of having HELM as an equity stakeholder as well, because they don't only get the marketing fee, but they are, let's say, in it for the dividends at the end of the year. So they've got two reasons, let's say, to optimize the netbacks.
Well, and to, just kind of expand on our experience there. I mean, we have assets across the country, so we have an intimate knowledge of exactly what it's going to cost to move a ton from New Orleans out into that marketplace. So there's no surprises there to HELM. We run a fleet of rail cars already. We run about 200 dry rail cars for other products. We run about 200 UAN cars, to run our UAN business. We run approximately 300 trucks a day that we originate and understand what it takes to hire a truck to move product from one market to another. So as far as the logistics piece, and if there were some concerns there or questions there, this is what we do. I mean, we started as a trading company. Today, we're not a trading company. We're very much a marketing and distribution company. And this is how we run our business every day on close to 3 million tons.